Howdy y'all, got the Bulldog on the channel. Working on this Ecotech here because the chains were out so far. We opted to do a cylinder leak down test to it to make sure that we're not gonna put a bunch of money in this thing and find out, oh shoot, it's tapped a valve. You know, we got to pull ahead now. So there's two ways to do that. Number one is you take the followers out down here on one cylinder and shoot air into that cylinder, and that way the valves will stay up all the way. And the other way is to pull the cam up and make it float. And since I'm doing all four of them, that's what I did. Was I've got the cam loose here. That way there's no way I can push down on the valves. Both sides. Now we're going to do our leak down test, and I'll see if I can get you where you can see what's going on. Down, 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 fall out. There we go. This is our leak down tester here. Got input pressure and then a flow meter to tell you just how much is going through. It's really simple with the way it's set up. We didn't used to have that. Now, you see that needle going all the way over there to the green? That means there's very little flow through that cylinder. It means the valves are seating up like they're supposed to. And we're running 90 psi through it. Like I said, we're going to do all four of them. We don't want to get bit. Also, it has me a little bit worried with what I've seen on the inside of this valve. Now that one shot right over there into the green. Now that one, the piston was all the way up, so it took a lot less volume to fill it up. Well, figured you'd fall down at least once. You're not getting into the wobble pops, are you? I can't seem to keep you straight. Anyway. Shot right over there. Now number 4 is going to take a while because it's going to be all the way down just like number 1 was. There were multiple guides broken, not just the top one. We found pieces when I took the front cover off. Yeah, it's going right on over there. So we're good. Now, that is something that will cost the customer a little bit more, but it will cost them a whole lot less than if we go forward with the timing chains, do all that, and then fire it up and find out it has a misfire because it's got a bent valve. This is a minuscule amount compared to going back into it and pulling the head off and fixing that. When you have it all down for the chains, you're not looking at very much more money if you go ahead and pull the head, because you've already got 2/3 of the job done. You pull the manifolds, pull the head right off. So yeah, that's something to think about whenever you're advised to do a leak down test or you're advised to do something extra. Just as long as they explain it good, usually you can see the logic in that, and finding out that, hey, it might be a good idea to know what you have to begin with. Now we know the valves are all good, and not only does this test for a bent valve, it tests for a burnt valve, which will have nothing to do with what we're doing. We've seen that before too. I have gone into an engine that it had a leaking valve. Now, what I did to it was something that everybody told me could not be done. Well, doing it the right way wasn't an option, so regardless of whether or not it could be done, I did it. I made myself a tool, and the car started missing. It had started misfiring, but it still ran. It had a loud noise, tick, 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 tick. All right. I get it home. I diagnose it as in the valve cover. And I didn't run the engine very much because it was loud. And I pull the valve cover and I see a broken valve spring. And oh shoot. I talked to the customer. Money is an issue. It's like, well, the valve spring is cheap, but putting it on is a nightmare. They do not design things to be easily accessible. They used to be, but then they stacked everything on top of it. You saw, the cam doesn't even come out of this. You have to pull the sprockets off to get the cam out. I got them loose so that I could make it float a little bit, and we check those valves. But on this application, not an option. It was V6, quad cam, so it was 8 or 9 hour job to get to the point that I could pull a cam. Now, what I did on that one was I made myself a tool to set on top of the valve, because it was a tapered valve. There was no way to get a conventional spring compressor in there because they're all made for overhead valve systems, not overhead cam. I made myself a tool to do that. I aired the cylinder to check, and it had a leaking valve. It would not hold the valve up. So I knew it was leaking, but I didn't know how bad. It almost held itself up. So I told him, it's gonna leak, but it might straighten up. It might just have some carbon knocked off of it. There's no way to know. We can do this. If it's something we're gonna have to go into later, this is cheap compared to later, and this might work. I put a new spring on it, and it took me a good 2 hours of fighting it to get the keepers back into it, but I got it back together, fired it up, and that thing ran without a misfire code, because it will set a code at idle if it's leaking through that valve. Once it warmed up and cooled back down, the misfire was gone, which I've seen multiple times. Where I mean, just a smidgen, just you know, half a mouse hair, and it will miss. These have to be very precise. So they got by with that. I made less money, but did I really? Because it didn't tie up my shop for a week, tearing it down, taking it to the machine shop, spending out $1,000 in overhead to get the heads worked, and then get it back, put it all together. Yeah, we don't want to put it together with new chains, so that's another $1,000 of chains and guides and all the gears that might go with it to prevent a problem later. They got by cheap. I got it out. It worked. Sometimes it don't. But cover yourself talking to mechanics and customers. Cover yourself when you're on a major repair, because you don't want to get bit by that snake. When you do, you know, not quite enough, and then you got to come back later and do things again. So we'll talk at you later.